Have you got a story to share? The experiences that you went through those dark times need to be told, need to be heard. The teachings, the lessons. I know when I had a stroke scare that it changed my life. My name's Jay from Journey of a Whitefeather, and I run a show on Spotify and all good platforms called A Chat with Jay. I talk to normal everyday people who have had experiences that need to share their teachings with the world. I speak to celebrities who are there, who can give you advice how to become a better person. Bruce Buffer, the Kings of Disco, Blackie Lawless from Wasp, so many people, but I love talking to the normal everyday person that gets up every morning to be their best self. If you want to be a guest, whitewarriorhealth@gmail.com. Check out our socials, hashtag Jay Stephenson, hashtag Journey of a Whitefeather. Take care and always be the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. G'day guys, this is Jay here from Journey of a Whitefeather, A Chat with Jay, opinions and views, koalas, kangaroos, Steve Irwin impersonations, and this is the Robin Hood effect. We're talking to a very good friend of mine. We've met basically through the election, if you want to call it that. We are funny. She's a lovely lady, mate. We have some chats and she has a lot to say about a few topics, but this is the Chief Disruptor. I love it. I absolutely love it. You can read into what you want to read into with that, but this lady is amazing. We've had some really solid chats, and I think we got to know each other during the election period. And yeah, we're both on the same path about wanting the best for humanity, I guess, in some ways, and informing people about what's actually happening and what they can do for themselves. But you're studying you got to get a PhD. I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. I don't know why I'm taking this because I talk too much sometimes, but you know, this is a good thing. That's why we get on really well here. We've had some cool chats, but thank you so much for coming on. It's
no, my pleasure, Jay. My pleasure. So yeah, I came on socials more passionately through the election. Yep. So my background is really, really varied. I joined the Labor Party when I was 16 because my parents were big Labor people. Yep. I was with them until I was about 21 or 22. At 21, I worked for the Federal Minister for Immigration as a policy advisor. And then I ended up working for NGOs and government. And then I went back years later and I joined the Liberal Party and I started working for the Libs. So I worked for the Libs until 2021. So I know a lot about politics. I know it as a member of two political parties, and I know it as a policy advisor or senior policy advisor that sat in meetings with cabinet ministers and heard like what they talked about and saw how bureaucrats operated. So, you know, I'm passionate about educating people about that. And I came on around the election because someone on Twitter, this guy called Greg Bean, said, 2.2 million people didn't vote at the last election. And I thought, holy cow, like we can see now in Victoria, there's that seat that is down to the wire, right? It's like 50 votes. And I think I did look that up. It's a couple of thousand people that didn't vote. So it does make a massive difference because if those people knew that it would come down to 50 votes and that Tim Wilson would have won, maybe they would have been happier and given him those extra 50 votes, or maybe they would have given Nicole those extra 50 votes.
That's right.
So that's why I sort of started. And the other thing is I really, really, really love Rennick, right? So Senator Jared Rennick, to me, is amazing because of the questions he asks in Parliament. You know, he asks all the right questions and you see the bureaucrats, like he just shows up what idiots they are, right? Does. Like they just don't know anything about anything. Yep. Oh, we'll take that on notice, you know, and stuff like that. Oh, no, we didn't plan for that. So, you know, I'm really sad that he didn't get in because he was the one that was keeping the bastards honest in Parliament.
Yep.
And that phrase came from a guy called Senator Don Chipp, who set up the Australian Democrats. So, you know, I love the Australian Democrats, and in between not being a member of the Labor Party or the Liberal Party, I had entertained the idea of joining them. but unfortunately they started sleeping with each other with Labor.
Yeah, wow.
And I just thought, I can't do this. And anyway, I met some, interesting Libs, and that's why I joined the Liberal Party. I also read up a lot about Menzies, and he's the guy that I really liked. Menzies was the guy who I think in a parallel universe was a bit like Rennick. He had a minor party, and what he did is he created the United Australia Party by bringing together all these smaller parties, and that became the Liberal Party of Australia. So, I think, I love politics. I love people, that are passionate about politics. I'm just as stunned as everyone else about the election.
Yeah, well.
Completely gobsmacked. But, moving on from that, apart from that, I'm applying for a PhD, looking at how can we predict retirement outcomes for Australians. And why I'm doing that is because I keep looking at the data around superannuation, and the median super for a man at 60 is 204,000, and for a woman at 60 is like 140,000. So you go, okay, like at 60, you're likely to live another 30, 40 years, at least another 30.
What was the, can I just ask again, what was the exact question you were asking for your PhD? Was how can we predict the age?
How can we predict retirement outcomes for Australians, right? So how can I predict that you're going to be at risk? How can I predict that you're not going to be at risk? So it's building a retirement index for Australia, right? And I think what happened is the idea of super is lauded around the world because it is a world first, right? Where employer contribution to superannuation, your retirement income.
Yep.
But so many things have happened since then, right?
Yeah,
the idea was great, right? The idea sold us this beautiful fantasy that we're not going to put any more pressure on the age pension, so that can look after people that have never worked or are unable to work or whatever, and everyone's going to have superannuation. What superannuation, at the time it was created at a time where people had full-time jobs and they worked in those jobs for 30, 40 years.
Yep.
That's where superannuation works. For people who are self-employed, for people who are gig economy workers, for people who are part-time workers, for people who are freelancers, the casualisation of work, which has brought in all these people that don't have continuous employment for 30 or 40 years, has put a crack in how much super you're able to acquire. Now, for women, it gets worse because women do stop to have children.
Yes.
Not as many now, but like my generation, definitely women stopped to have children. So we were out of the workforce sometimes for a year, sometimes for 3 years, and there's no superannuation that you have during that time.
Yeah.
The other thing that superannuation didn't really account for is divorce. So superannuation, if you've got 204 as a man and your wife's got 140, I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's better than just having 140 separate from 204K. So it didn't account for the casualised workforce. It didn't account for women, which is like ridiculous. And it didn't account for the fact that now housing, right? Because if you look at superannuation, there's an assumption that we will own a home outright when we retire. So again, when super was constructed, home ownership was high. It was like 60%. But that's really our parents' gen. Our parents' gen were the ones that were the post-war boomers who actually had the capacity because they were earning, even $40,000, $50,000 a year. Like my parents, they weren't wealthy, but they were public servants. And they were able to buy houses because the houses were 200,000, not 2 million. Right? So everything was so different. So this idea, which essentially was a great idea, didn't account for all of that. And then we didn't account for some super funds being run by unions. And we didn't account for some super funds being run by, Goldman Sachs type corporations.
Yep.
And we didn't think about the fact that our super funds, and you've raised this, are investing overseas, right? So the majority of super funds are actually investing our money overseas and not in Australia. So all of this just got me thinking, like, we've got to be able to predict who's going to be in trouble and why. Like, we have so much data now, right? Like, so I know, because I've looked at the data by local area, by local government area, by state and federal electorate, and you can see how many people at what age are renters. So if you see someone at 45, that's the demographic that I look at, because they've got 20 years to retirement and they're renting. You have to start sweating and going, okay, well, where are they going to live? Like, they've got 20 years, which is great. But, you know, this is where I had some trouble with people suggesting, like, yeah, let's raid our super. And initially I was totally opposed to it, because I'm like, raid what super? You're going to have 204 at the end. That's not even going to pay off your mortgage, right? So you raid your super, you've got less chance of rebuilding that unless you're in your 20s. If you're in your 40s and you're raiding your super, you've got very little chance of making that back. So I started to worry that then you're going to have to go on the age pension. And the problem with that is the age pension sucks, right? Like, it's really not enough to live on unless you own your home outright. So I keep going around in these circles and I go, okay, we can predict who's renting. Therefore, why aren't we predicting what housing is needed? Because I can look at the data from 2021 and I can say, well, the 55-year-olds, the 65-year-olds, the 75-year-olds renting, that's unsustainable. We've got to build the right housing in those communities for those people to have social housing. But, you know, like, we blame migrants and all of that, but fundamentally the blame lays with the fact that government, state government, stopped investing in social housing.
I'd like to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show.
So there's such a backlog. In New South Wales, 10,000 wait list. And I reckon now it's must be 50,000 wait list.
Can I jump in on those ones? I think you raise a hell of a good argument. I really do. And I think when you actually break down what you were saying, it makes a lot of sense. It's basically mismanagement on, we can say, immigration and all that. That's
totally.
But,
I mean, that's part of it. I'm not,
yeah,
you know,
no, you're exactly right. Yep.
But if government did its fundamental job, which is provide social housing for those that need it.
That's right.
Right? We would be having less of a conversation. Still, housing, we'd probably still have another issue with the price of housing, but that's really investment properties. That's people getting all these benefits to have 20 investment properties and then put that on Airbnb instead of having it available on the private rental market.
Yeah,
you know, it's systemic, right? And it's not simple. It's complex. Immigration is part of it. But again, like, I remember when I was a kid, there was, I want to call it council housing. I don't know if we ever called it that. Maybe that's the UK.
What do we call it?
Local, like, they had small, like, worker housing.
Yeah. It was
housing,
like
housing for workers.
Yeah, I can't remember. Commission homes, they were calling.
Yeah, housing commission. But you know, they had them for working people. It wasn't just like people on benefits. They had them for working people. And I worked for the Minister for Ageing and Disability in New South Wales, which was part of Family and Community Services. And back then, you know, I questioned a lot of things. But for example, back then, and that was around 2012, 2013, they were spending $300 million a year putting homeless people in motels. Let that sink in. And you won't find it in budget papers.
Can you repeat that for me, please?
So in New South Wales around 2013, they were spending $300 million a year putting homeless people in motels. So crisis accommodation, instead of having refuges, because they closed all of them down, they had to put them in motels. So they're paying motels nightly rates for people to sit there. Like, when Gladys got the shits with everyone being in Martin Place, she removed them. They all went to the hotels for a few weeks, right? And then they get put back on the street. So the problem is that they're not actually solving anything. And I remember going to the head of the department at the time saying, why aren't we investing this money in housing? And he said to me, you don't need to worry about that because Treasury pays for it.
This is the whole point about what's going on. Like, I knew about, they're talking about housing crises and I want to do a shout out to my friend Shallow Chow. He's
He's amazing. I love him.
yeah, Scotty, mate, you're doing a great job with getting people out there regarding building and what's happening. But I mean, getting back to there's so many points. It's, as I said,
Sorry, I know I am.
No, not at all. Hey, and this is the information we need to get. This info. People like you need to be heard, and this is why I do what I do. And part of the Robin Hood effect, voice awareness, getting people aware. But I want to talk quickly. Let's go number one, superannuation.
Yes.
Let's look at that now. I've invested in a self-managed super fund. That's my number one. Now, I want to shout out my supporter, Liberty Bullion and Storm Rake, and my friend Tim from Beat the Reset. Now, we were talking about physical assets with regards to superannuation. Now, whatever happens, which is fine. Okay, we won't have to go into that. But the reason I got into self-managed because I wanted to invest in where I wanted to because it's my money.
Correct.
Now you look at people calling superannuation a poxy scheme or whatever they call it. Some funny word, whatever it is, you know. I got the Aussie accent, mate. That's where it goes. But they call it some sort of poxy scheme, whatever it is. If you really look into it, they are investing overseas. Where's the money coming from with regards to, sponsoring the AFL, sponsoring big events, keep going.
Keep thinking, right, Jay? I keep thinking they're running parties and they're putting 150K here and there, and that's a woman at 60s, median super.
That's
right. Like that is insane. How can you be spending that on a party? And they do. They don't care.
Oh well, this is the whole point. This is what I'm saying to you. Like we look at how much money are they making? Look, they're giving us our dividends, no problem. Okay. It's all fair and legit. But this is why I pulled my money and went into self-managed super, which I'll talk about very soon. But the idea of superannuation is a fantastic idea until you get the little muddy fingers in there. And it's like anything in life. You put the little muddy fingers in there and, they want to line their own pockets or whatever they want to do. We're not getting the benefit. It is commission housing, as I call it. Plus, you look at the age pension problem, which you was talking about. I mean,
and that's the thing, right? So I was against people dipping into their super.
Yep.
But then I sort of looked into it a bit and I thought, well, if people aren't going to have enough super to do anything anyway, I mean, what's 200 grand going to do if you don't have a house? Like you're going to be spending that on rent. And then when that runs out, you're going to live off rent assistance and the age pension? So I thought, no. If people want to use that to do whatever, like, build a home or whatever.
It's a very backward type of thing. And what I think if you go, and we had this discussion, if you think, right, I do want to invest 10% of my income into my future, right? Now that logistically, that is a smart move, right?
Yes.
So that's what we were talking about. But we look into people who go, I want to use my super for investing in the properties and all this kind of stuff, but without the thought of the future. Like we're talking retirement future. They're looking probably 10 years, I'll make a bit of money, la-da-da-da-da. But you look at it as investing for the future and it's long term, like into gold and silver, maybe into some Bitcoin, whatever you decide. But that's the mentality that I've got. That money's not to go, I'm going to go and blow it on a house. But with this so-called inflation and, all the money getting taken out and we can talk about natural resources like gas being taken out and all our natural resources and minerals and all that getting sold for bloody sweet FA.
Yeah.
And not getting the money back to invest in this country. Because the 12 of the biggest companies aren't paying tax. We know $39 billion a year. That would get us out of debt. I wonder why. Cheap perks, let's go. Qantas Club, wonder why Mr. Albanese went in the Qantas Club, got it for nothing. I'd like to be him too. Anyway, if we're going to get perks like that. But if you get where I'm going with that, so what he's going, it's like the middle class is paying for everything. And this is what it is. And tell us a little bit.
So we're not, there was a sort of discussion just before the election saying we're the highest tax country in the world.
Yep.
We're not the highest income tax country in the world, but if you add up all the taxes that we are hit on, right? And I remember when we all said, yeah, sure, bring in a GST and lower payroll tax, lower income tax.
Yep.
But they never did.
They didn't.
Right? So it's like we just got hammered, and we are getting hammered. And I love the fact that in Victoria, the farmers are saying no, enough.
Oh, and
enough, no more. We're not paying another tax.
Did you see the Premier get on there and try and justify it? And I'll tell you right now, this is how I interpret her interview with the 3AW interview. Okay, she comes out, oh yes, we're going to get this money and we're going to invest in getting new fire trucks. Okay, great. You're $156 billion in debt. You're going to grab the money off these poor buggers, right? And then you're going to go, I'm going to use your money to buy fire trucks, which could be owned by the government anyway, because technically the money's gone through the government. You basically paid for it, so you're paying for the fire trucks.
Again, you're paying for it again.
My point. And
I know we are. There's just too much. And the thing is that we've been so complacent, right? Like in Europe, when they tried to raise the retirement age, people rioted in the freaking streets. Now, by 2030, I think it is, they're going to raise the retirement age for anyone born in 1990 and above to 70, right? Which is, it's good if you're healthy and you've got another 30 years, but it's not good.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Do you really want to live your life coming onto this earth, working your guts out and then going from there and not enjoying some time in your life? You go, I've got to scrounge to go for a holiday.
Exactly. And that's the thing, right? So when I was against the idea of people using their super for whatever, like to improve their outlook,
yep.
I was against it. And then I thought, oh, God, everyone's going to end up on the age pension with the median super being at 204 for a man and 140, and say it even goes up to 300. Like you need roughly at least 600,000 to retire relatively comfortably.
And
right?
This is the whole point about looking into different things. Now, if these guys are investing overseas and all that, which I have no proof of this. We've got
no. Like that's what Rennick was talking about. Like they should be investing in Australia. They shouldn't be, And look, they'll say that it's about diversifying the investment, right? It's about giving us a better opportunity as members for them to invest in stuff overseas that might be bringing a bigger return than just investing in Australia. But, I don't know, like I think we've all through the election become very nationalist, and it's like, fuck that. Just put Australia first.
No, they won't though.
Australia first.
Look, we see this, like we're still doing this over the election. Both of you and me, we've had this discussion, right? We're just going exactly what you do. I can just imagine us talking, going, nah.
Just put Australia first.
They won't do it though. We've seen this though. It's like, yeah, the biggest one I say, right? This is and when you wake up and have awareness, and as I said, Robin Hood effect, have awareness, and you go, okay, I'm going to commit $5 billion to Medicare. Where the hell are you getting $5 billion when we're about $800 billion in debt? What you got your printing press in the back, probably printing money, and that's where obviously inflation, but we got other theories on that too. But seriously, be transparent on anything, but they won't do it, will they?
No, and I saw a diagram a while back, right, that this is also a problem. So housing prices have gone up like that. Wages have gone like that.
Yes.
Right? So like I said before, my parents may have only been earning $50K a year, but they were able to buy housing for like $200,000. So they were able to buy a house and then pay it off, like very easily within that income, comfortably with a 2-income family. So, there's no chance that someone on 50K now can do it, because entry into the market is at least 700,000, 800,000 a mil, right? If you want to be in the city. So that's the issue. So the other thing that we kind of need to do is you can use your money for whatever, because at the end of the day, you're never going to have enough if you haven't been a public servant or a politician. There you go, I've said it. Right? If you've been a public servant or a politician, or you've worked for a big corporate for 30 years, you're going to be okay. But the rest of us are not going to be okay. Right? So maybe think about a couple of friends, and people have been doing this for decades, right? Think of a couple of friends and start looking at, well, do we buy land together, or do we think about living together as we get older? Because The rise of single people because of divorce, that's also becoming an issue. So if you have a couple, you've got two people, right, that are able to contribute to something. But if you're single and you're renting and you've got 100K in your super, like, you really have nowhere to go. And I'm thinking we need to come back to community living, come back to a spiritual life where, you know, we go back and we grow our food and we're living in smaller communities, right? And I think that's doable. That's something that I want to explore in my PhD. Like, how do you make sure everyone has housing at a time when we can't control what's happening with the housing prices, right? That's what it is. But how do you still make sure that everyone has a home when they're in their 60s? Like, surely we can achieve that, right? And listen, we're only 28 million people. This is why I'm so disgusted in our government. 28 million people, and we can't get this right. Today I taught a class of high school students. They're here for a week from the Philippines. Do you know the population of the Philippines? 100 million.
Wow.
Right? So don't at me that we can't resolve this. We should be the shining light of the whole world, of how we are able now to be flexible with superannuation and maybe realize that we just have to go to a universal basic pension where everyone in means tested gets a universal basic pension, but not at the rate it is now. Right? Pensioners have been skimping out on their meds and food and everything for decades. Right? So that pension, because we're all going to end up on it somehow, needs to be a proper freaking living wage.
They won't do that.
They
won't. Look, if they were really serious about stuff there, we look at, I'm going back to natural resources back when Howard was around.
Yeah.
All right. We know what we know. Oh, we had all this and that, and, you know, we had a surplus and all that. But what were they selling our natural resource? That's the big thing here. So we should be self-sufficient.
Exactly.
Senator Rennick said that.
With the resources that we have, with 28 million people, we should be rich as anything. Well, everyone should be comfortable, and yet we're not. So it's about priorities. People have been posting all day on socials about the fact that he's just given so many millions of dollars, or is it $1 billion, to Indonesia for their health or something, or education.
Oh, I saw that. Yes. I go, what? A lot of people are writing, what about your country? And look, and this is why we do what we do, ladies and gentlemen, because people like myself and the Chief Disruptor getting together and going, we're creating a voice. So everyone knows I love YMCA, the village people. I got the honour of interviewing 4 members of the current Kings of Disco. My name's Jay, and I have a chat show on Spotify and YouTube called A Chat with Jay. And today, the biggest interview of my life, former members of Village People, the Kings of Disco. Bill Whitefeather, the construction worker. Eric Elizonia, the leatherman. Alex Briley, G.I. Joe Army Man. And Ray Simpson, one of the best frontmen I've seen. He's the copper. We reminisced about the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but we know they're called the Kings of Disco. But what happened? Let's see when we talk to them on our show. But also, we're going to find out how to get them down here, because when they were here in 2017, they rocked the house, and they can do it again. Spread this video around. Looking forward to releasing it. And thank you so much, the Kings of Disco. We want you down under again, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much, and always do the YMCA.